Hello, everybody. I'd like to take the time to um, update the term of self care and what it means as a practice. So, the proper and correct use of self care is to provide the individual with the experience of what it feels like to take care of oneself. Uh, this may seem like an action, so you go and you have an experience, and that's what it takes, and it's pretty simple. But the action itself is not the experience, and the experience needs to be integrated into the individual, meaning that they have to take from it more than just the actions and more than just the thoughts. And in this way, when we practice different things, therapies, exercise, and so on, it is not the idea to bring across just the therapeutic benefit, but to provide the human experience of what it feels like to have taken care of that issue. And that issue is just one expression of that thing. And I'll also like to update that in self care, the priority is to restore the emotional balance of a situation, which seems like the integration of the person, or what we used to, or would more traditionally call integration or growth towards one's full potential. This is more of a letting go of the things that repress our emotional expression and understanding what the purpose of emotions are and how they help us navigate things. This is absolutely essential knowledge to be able to bring about the understanding of self care in general. And if we're going to do it in a way that is beneficial for not just the moment or placebo effect, we have to make sure that we start in this direction and we use it for that purpose. And as we know, the use of an object derives its purpose, and we're going to be using self care to uh, rebalance the emotions and allow a person to be comfortable and okay being themselves, and also being able to identify what that is for the individual. It seems tricky, but it's a little bit easier than you might think. It does take hard work, and we can say that all compensations are done in a way of not having the um, appropriate level of solution, and the solution being higher than the problem itself. So therefore, compensation starts. The compensation is really a replacement for the real thing. Once we bring back the real thing, the actual emotion that should have happened or needs to be kind of brought out or learned from that experience, then we're able to, again, put the body in a state where it can start restoring itself. I often found it very interesting that the body can replace all its cells and tissues in a matter of 9 years, head to toe kind of thing. But still, we have the remaining issue that we had 8 years ago or 9 years ago. How is that possible if every single cell in the body is new? This kind of denotes that there has to be a mental aspect to this situation, or at least a deeper style of movement contributing this. We often think of this as muscle tightness and muscle restriction. Can muscle restriction be caused by mental things? We often know that the mind and body work together, so this is possible. In fact, we also know that the emotions impact the body with blood flow, with blood restriction, with movement styles and patterns. If you have an injury and you hurt yourself, after the hurt is gone, the emotional aspect still stays. So we can have the impact of emotion on those things. Ultimately, the hardest thing for us to see is the thing that we always sacrifice. And in the case of mental, physical, and emotional is still the thing that is not seen correctly. And although we're starting to validate more the mental, we're using mental as if it's emotional. And there is a very big difference between the two. And the idea is that because emotion has the least amount of light shed on it, if we can establish a kind of supportive system for this, then we'll be able to better see the other two elements, physical and mental. So, in this style of thinking, self-care is going to be taking on this kind of task of bringing to light that. The best way that I've seen with my research and experience is to bring about the experience. Often we like to take out the, let's say, the moral of the story and kind of miss the whole thing that brought about that moral in the first place. Uh, Example of this is wisdom from tradition. So originally people did things for a reason, a very specific reason for them. They knew that. We'll call that wisdom. Ultimately, their children lost that wisdom and then just took over the kind of ritual of doing the thing, still having some benefit because the action was correct from wisdom. As we move further away from that, now we stop practicing that kind of ritual and we start doing things without even that. And in this way, we see that it's also possible to have emotional reaction without the wisdom behind it, and then find yourself in a situation where you're not better off, but you're more in a challenging situation. So keeping that in mind, we want to make sure that we bring back the kind of structure to the wisdom of emotion and therefore help the other expressions. And being able to bring about the other things that are associated with the actual solution, which I believe is the experience itself. An experience can't particularly be broken down into any isolated thing. Then we have to keep it in its original form and just point people in the direction where that is going to be most beneficial. Once they have integrated the skills that make that particular challenge for them more seen. For example, somebody who has lack of self-esteem, this eventually will play out in a style of living, a style of movement, a style of thinking, and a style of feeling, which brings about the stress on the human as a person, which brings about illness, sickness, and so on. So we want to take a look at that when it just seems to be a character trait. It's really more of a character maladaptation, but this is fine. It was a solution at one point and no longer needs to be there, so we need to get rid of it. So if we kind of take that on and we say, well, we need this person to experience a kind of inner strength or courage or that kind of thing, and we put them in the position where they learn a new skill, which takes a little bit of courage to learn something new, which is the entry level of what we want to try to facilitate. And then they get really knowledgeable on the topic, then they're able to help out somebody with that topic. This brings about the stronger confidence in oneself. And or if somebody's able to create something that's beautiful or nice, or a way of kind of challenging them to tap into this thing that's missing so that they can see that they definitely have it. This is the physical aspect, being able to do an action that brings about a feeling, which is great, but ultimately we also want to make that known to the person. So I can still go through an experience, and if my whole thinking the whole time was that, I'm not confident enough, the end result of that experience will still be that I'm not confident enough, even though to do a speech or to do the action that I did do, it takes confidence. You see, this is how we can tell that there's an emotional aspect to it. Why is the physical reality one thing, but the person's take home something different? This is a strong factor of what I would call emotional dysregulation. The idea of not getting the full experience from the circumstance, and therefore you end up the same way even after it. So anyway, that's just a little background on the new direction of where I'm going to take self-care in my practice. And I think that it is going to have a very profound change in the ability for people to kind of be self-empowered, take the responsibility onto themselves because they can do it for themselves, but also in the fact of not having the practitioner take that away. If I have all the knowledge and you have none, I still am in the authority. Therefore, I have the ability to change myself and impart some of that change to you, but you have not acquired that skill. And we always want to make sure that the skill and the experience is what's being passed off. So then that person can start to live life from that new perspective and start to build small experiences as to kind of justify the fact that they have accomplished this thing for themselves. And once that hits a certain amount, then the person is able to embody this characteristic that they felt that they never had, but always did have. And in this sense, this is where we want to have the greatest benefit. And I think this is a great complement as well for the other therapies and modalities and stuff like that. And I'd suggest that in different practices that we also try to bring in the self-care aspect of that and not particularly rely too heavily on a specific action or way of thinking or the emotions itself. In paying too much attention to one of the three, we also create more dysregulation to a point. And it will take lots of study and research for the person to be able to kind of balance that back out. So it's best to always allow the person to experience things as their way of living, as opposed to focusing it too much. All right, so that's all I have to say on that. Hopefully that's a little bit insightful, claritative to you, and that you know what kind of page we're on with the self-care thing. And as well, I'd like to quickly redefine design fitness, where the purpose of design fitness now is more about the being fit to take on life, better associated with the self-care concept that I just previously stated. And this is a part of our practice. So have a great day.